Hello, my name is Blake Patterson, and welcome to Real Values. On this week's episode, I discuss the best films of the 2020s so far. Despite what most cynics would say, the 2020s have been a solid decade for cinema so far. Sure, it started out rough in 2020, but the decade's cinema improved gradually. Now, here are a few honorable mentions. Bad Luck Banging or Loony Porn, The Boy and the Heron, Challengers, First Cow, and Nickel Boys. Number 10, Titan. In retrospect, it is hilarious to think of all the people who thought Julia Ducournau's Titan was an offensive film because the French filmmaker was bold enough to empathize with her characters beneath the violence. The film's compassionate core provoked those who were not willing to give it a chance. But those of us who went along with Titan found it to be a surprisingly humane study of connection amid hardships. The two central performances by Agatha Roussel and Vincent Lindon portray the emotional bruises of their characters credibly, and their chemistry amplifies the impact of Ducournau's drama. In a time when many films are limited by a binary way of thinking, here was a film that dared to go into the abyss. Number 9, Drive My Car. Ryusuke Hamaguchi's Drive My Car was one of those masterpieces that came out of nowhere because it was under my radar until several critics called it the best film of its year. Hamaguchi's 3-hour Japanese epic is a beautifully nuanced portrait of two characters and the friendship they form as they are haunted by their past. Every scene flows evenly to the next without feeling unnecessary, because Hamaguchi's empathy for these characters and those surrounding them is genuinely felt in the amount of time he spends with them. While I have caught up with more of Hamaguchi's work since then, none of them have captured the delicacy and honesty of Drive My Car. Sometimes it is easy to compare a humanist work to the late Jean Renoir, but Drive My Car earns that comparison masterfully by understanding these characters and their reasons. Number 8, The Green Knight. When I first saw David Lowery's The Green Knight, I was pleasantly surprised because I had not been enthusiastic about his previous work. What I expected to see was an elegantly made but dramatically cold adaptation of a classic tale, but Lowery's adaptation is a boldly realized reinterpretation of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight by examining the complexity of honor and what it means beyond a conventional sense. While there is CGI in the film, Lowery embraces the practical aspects of his production in a way that gives the film more weight emotionally for the audience. The Green Knight will certainly challenge those who might want a more traditional fantasy like The Lord of the Rings, but it is a deeply satisfying experience for those who want an eccentric retelling rather than a standard adaptation. Number 7, Tar. Of all the reviews I have created in the last few years, the essay I wrote about Todd Field's Tar was my most popular review. Given the film's serious subject matter and the ideas it explored in a post-Me Too climate, it makes sense that a movie like Tar would provoke audiences to think about predators in power and how they abuse their positions to get what they desire. What I loved most about Tar was that it went beyond the bad apple way of thinking and targeted an entire system and how broken it was to suggest a cycle of abuse. To alleviate the tension, Field gives Cate Blanchett moments of genuine humor that specify her character beyond her more outrageous acts. With Tar, Field moved forward as an artist and made his most artfully realized and provocative effort by making the audience think about the issues he explores rather than providing simple answers. Number 6, May December. Todd Haynes' May December is unfortunately one of those great films that never found the audience it deserved because Netflix was more interested in other projects at the time of its release. That being said, those who saw May December and were willing to go with it likely recognized it as an emotionally gripping and intelligently written study of two different kinds of exploitation, the sexual and media-based. Each character is so credibly written that there is never a question about their authenticity because the actors make every aspect of Sammy Birch's script feel alive. While the movie is occasionally satiric, Haynes' handling of the central character is as sensitive as in his best work like Far From Heaven and Safe. Number 5, Killers of the Flower Moon. As many superb movies as Martin Scorsese has made over the years, Killers of the Flower Moon was arguably the master's most accomplished film since Goodfellas. While Goodfellas is fast-paced and Killers of the Flower Moon is deliberately paced, Scorsese's 2023 film is a critical reflection of Scorsese's interest in violence and how symptomatic it is within our society, but goes further with a portrait of the history of violence and racism and how they intertwine in the true story of an interracial marriage that was doomed from the start. Killers of the Flower Moon is a film where the central marriage between Ernest and Molly Burkhart must be convincing emotionally, or the movie will fall apart, and Leonardo DiCaprio and Lily Gladstone succeed in their authentically nuanced portrayal of the marriage and its eventual downfall. Number 4, Anatomy of a Fall. Generally speaking, courtroom drama is one of the most boring genres in the medium because its aesthetic is usually as banal as its basic moral and social dynamics. However, Justine Trier's Anatomy of a Fall was a welcome exception because every decision Trier made was artfully considered and recognizably human. Within the framework of a courtroom drama, Trier explores the psychological and social nuances of a dysfunctional marriage through evidence and testimonies. The morally gray nature of the characters makes us wonder what is true or false, and that dramatic drive makes Anatomy of a Fall not only a courtroom drama worthy of Anatomy of a Murder, but a great marital portrait. Number 3, The Brutalist. The Brutalist is an excellent example of how to fuse old and modern technology in a way that feels unique to the sensibility of a new Hollywood epic. In some ways, Brady Corbet's masterpiece is far more satisfying than many of the epics that received acclaim from that era, because its tone and mood are always evenly handled, and the characters are developed as people rather than chess pieces. The film is an exhilarating and haunting portrait of the immigrant experience, cultural assimilation, and anti-Semitism, with the lead performers at the top of their game, dramatically. Whether audiences loved or hated it, The Brutalist was meant to strike a nerve in a culture that is unfortunately conditioned by fast-paced, conventional storytelling. Number 2, The Substance. Coralie Farja established herself with the exciting debut Revenge, but her recent film The Substance was a perfectly executed horror film about internalized misogyny within a patriarchal industry based upon unfair and inhumane standards for women. During her career, Demi Moore has never been given the best material to demonstrate her skills as a performer, but she delivers a one-of-a-kind performance as Elizabeth Sparkle that gets under your skin. While Moore embraces the brutality and satirical nature of The Substance, her performance and the movie carry an emotional undercurrent that breaks through the framework. As the beautifully transcendent ending occurs, we feel the overwhelming tragedy of Elizabeth's life. And the best movie of the decade so far is The Holdovers. If you have been following me since November 2023, you will know how much Alexander Payne's The Holdovers means to me. While critics were generally kind to the movie, I thought they did not take it seriously as an achievement in period filmmaking and what can be accomplished aesthetically with modern technology. The Holdovers captures the ethos of a Hal Ashby film from the 70s, and it never once feels like a modern film in 70s clothing. Ashby has always inspired Payne, but The Holdovers was a hilarious and moving culmination for him as a filmmaker. Each actor in the movie is perfectly cast as their character, portraying them naturally as if they were real people from 1970. Of all the movies this decade so far, here is a movie that I have rewatched several times and think it holds up with some of the greatest films of all time. Thank you for watching this video. Have a great night.